As the country witnessed the tragedy and immense fallout of the September 11th attack, hundreds of flights were diverted outside of the United States.
38 of those aircrafts landed in the tiny town of Gander, Canada, where boundless generosity was felt by thousands of passengers. 1011 Chanel Taylor McCarthy was able to sit down with a Lincoln woman who was on one of those planes and recounts the immeasurable kindness from locals amid the travesty. She's at Memorial Stadium this morning for the 9/11 stair climb to tell us this story. Chanel Taylor?
Yeah, good morning, guys. I'm here at Memorial Stadium, but just behind me here, the Air Force is actually climbing 2,000 stairs to represent the 110 flights that firefighters, first responders had to climb at the World Trade Center. Now, same as them, that woman, Elizabeth Catt, she was in the Air Force when 9/11 was happening. She was on her way from Frankfurt, Germany to Atlanta for a training mission. She said 7 hours into her flight, the pilot told them that they would be diverting the plane to Canada. That is when she realized that something much bigger was happening.
Just tell. And we never would have thought that the airspace over the United States was closed. So what we thought was it's not minor. And then he dumped fuel over the Atlantic. And I thought, well, they don't want us to have all that fuel on board when we crash.
While Catt and her colleagues feared a crash landing, just 400 kilometers away, the unimaginable was happening in New York City. Terrorist hijackers took over the American Airlines Flight 11, Flight 175, and Flight 93. At 8:46 a.m., one of the planes crashed into the World Trade Center's North Tower, and then another at the South Tower, and then again at the Pentagon. Nearly 3,000 people were killed. Meanwhile, Catt's plane, Delta Flight 15, made a safe landing in Gander, Canada, where 37 other passenger planes were diverted before them. The reality of what was happening started to unravel.
The pilot taxied over to a building and stopped, and that's when he said, "I'm so sorry for the ruse, but I was instructed to get the plane out of the air. There's been a tragedy in the United States, and they've closed the airspace."
Dozens of buses would pick up the 6,600 passengers who sat on the tarmac for 28 hours. When they got inside the airport, there was food and hygiene products waiting for them. Catt says it seemed as though the whole town showed up and welcomed them with open arms.
So you have to understand, Gander is 10,000 people, and they had 6,600 people on these planes, and they needed to be fed and housed and probably clothed and bathed, and they didn't know how long that was going to happen. And they just made, apparently, you know, it all happened behind the scenes for us, but they just made a phone call, right? They just put it on the radio, and people said, okay, here are my blankets, here are my towels.
For that week, the population of Gander doubled. Churches, residents, and officials housed, fed, clothed, and even entertained those they called the plain people. Pharmacies in Gander also provided prescribed medication to people who ran out of their meds free of charge.
It was this huge bright spot in a very dark time. And it also reminded me that in the world, humans are more like the people of Newfoundland. Maybe not to their extent, because they are amazing, but people are more kind and more generous and more willing to help than take lives.
The week spent in Gander made a lasting impression on Catt and on the other passengers. They found out that many Newfoundlanders would skip graduating from high school and get into the fishing industry. It gave passengers the idea to start the 9/11 Newfoundland Scholarship and raise $30,000 on their flight back home. As the word got around, donations flooded in. Today, the fund sits at just over $1 million and has sent over 300 Newfoundlanders to college. Catt says it was the least they could do for the small town that stopped their lives to comfort and care for them.
Look for the goodness, because it was horrible evil, and we can't change what happened, but you can see the beauty of the human spirit, and that's what I experienced in Gander, the beauty of the human spirit.
Yeah, I'm back with Sergeant DeWolf with the Air Force here. Now, I'm going to ask you, you and I were alive when this happened, but a lot of the people here today, you know, they were probably just born or wasn't even born yet. So what does it mean to be able to keep that memory alive and honor those first responders and those victims that died on that day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being here is, as a person who lived through that experience, right, you're not only carrying the experiences and the bravery and the courage that it took that day for those men and those women to experience that, right? But now we're having to stay here and unify as a group and to show our support for not only them and their memory, but also their families. And also it's to show us and others that it's important to represent that bravery, that strength, that courage to persevere through everything that life has to offer.
Yeah, and so we got the band here behind us. They're starting to practice, but it's great that you guys have come out here to just honor those